Welcome back to the Laurence McKenna channel. Today, I want to thank everyone for 40k. We're still very much on our way to 100 by the World Cup. Thank you to True Geordie, Rory, Laurence, and James Lawrence Alcott, Adam, everyone else who's been on the channel. You guys have been great. But 56% of you are not subscribed. So hit that subscribe button and let me know what you want to see on the channel. Today we're discussing Casemiro and, of course, Manchester United's potential spending spree in the transfer market, which still doesn't justify the Glazers being owners of Manchester United. Don't forget that. This is all, of course, happening through the prism in the spectrum of Manchester United not being a particularly well-run club. So when I'm going through some of these options, don't forget that Manchester United have not been well-run recently, and signing one or two players in any transfer window with the seemingly changing strategy almost completely week to week does not justify one quality player coming into a club, and in no way am I trying to justify that. It also, by the way, doesn't mean that Casemiro isn't a player of quality and isn't a signing of quality. There are, of course, pluses and minuses to signing each of these kind of players. But when we're working on this sort of thing, you've got to kind of temper your expectation with, well, this is Manchester United we're talking about here. They've just signed a player for close to 60 million, who is almost 31, will be 31 this year. They've offered him a 4-year contract, and it's with a 5th-year option, which means he could be 36 by the time he leaves Manchester United, which again is highly unlikely if things go well. But they've also offered him 300 to 350k a week, making him one of the highest paid players at the club. Again, and even then, there are questions over where he fits in, how he fits in, and whether he A, fits into the Erik Ten Hag system or any future manager's system. He seems so Real Madridified at this point, and I get it, he's been fantastic for them, but there is some form of institutionalization that happens to those kind of players. And there have been a couple of guys that have left and been very decent, but also at the same time, there have been a couple of guys who have left and, well, they've really lived up to expectations outside of Real Madrid. That's not me saying I think he's a bad signing. I do think he's a quality player, and he offers that destroyer element I don't think he is the ball player that they need, but he's been alongside great ball players in Modric and Kroos, and he has played in significant roles. Of course, Rafa Benitez loved him and sort of brought him through into the side properly in a quite a significant way when he was at the club. A lot of people at the time were questioning whether, you know, a Brazilian like that could play the role that they need him to play. But Brazilians have sort of changed their ilk and their perception, if you like, in Europe more recently. It's quite interesting to see kind of how people perceive a Brazilian now. Bear in mind, he may also be playing alongside another Brazilian in Fred. So it's going to be interesting to see the dynamic between those two. Is Fred going to be the more dynamic ball player with Casemiro sitting a little bit deeper? Will they sit with a 2 at the centre of that midfield because they need some protection for that back line, be that Harry Maguire or Varane and insert Martinez maybe? Probably Martinez, right? The point being, we don't quite know what Manchester United's plan is, so we don't quite know how he's going to fit in, and we don't know whether this is a good or a bad signing for that. But we can judge a couple of these things. Well, Liverpool and Man City both haven't signed a player, and I just want to quote this properly, signed a player 30 plus since Bakary Sagna and Ragnar Klavan. That shows you how signing a 30 plus player in most of these markets, well, it's unusual. However, there are some 30 plus players that are doing very well for top end sides at the moment. Liverpool, of course, have got this older aging side at the moment with Hendo and probably Milner and probably a couple of other guys in there being well over 30 plus at this point. And they're still serviceable, but, and by the way, that's disrespectful in a way, they're beyond serviceable, they've been fantastic. But there are a couple of issues with those. Sometimes there's injury, and we often find this with when players change regimes or clubs, they don't fit in the same way, sure. Then there's the other question of, is Casemiro really in the mould that Manchester United are looking for? He clearly isn't in the De Jong mould, for instance, and he doesn't fill a De Jong-shaped hole within the side. There isn't really much evidence to suggest that Erik Ten Hag is either probably going to want a player like this or maybe even has asked for a player like this, but Manchester United seemingly want him, so if they're going on Erik Ten Hag's model, maybe this is the guy they thought, hey, we can convince him to come. I'd be very happy with that. United are also apparently looking, and I love this, for 4 more players within this transfer window, meaning that if we are looking at him as a starting point, it's a pretty good starting point, especially price-wise and profile-wise. will they be looking for people that fit in with him, or is he a short-term option until they can find someone else? If this is a club that's producing a lot of money in the first place, spending 60 million on someone surely shouldn't be all that worrying. And I repeat though, he doesn't have the experience of player alongside him in this midfield that he's had before. We've seen Varane come to the club, we've seen Ramos go to PSG. Things haven't always transitioned particularly well for those players, or they haven't been particularly significant, or they haven't had the significance that maybe we expected them to have. That is only natural. The real question at this point is, what is Manchester United's approach? What is their strategy? Is this short-termism? I've spoken to a few United fans, and a few of them just say, look, this is just a short-term fix for what is still a very long-term problem. We needed players that would be able to come in and perform, and seemingly, judging by the Champions League performances, judging by his performances for Real Madrid, and judging by previous midfields he's been in, he's got the experience, he's got the gravitas, he's got the leadership skills to be able to come into these teams. By the way, leadership skills, I'm still wondering why I'm attributing that and why other people are attributing that, but it's been written in a number of articles, and I'm willing to quote it. His experience, of course, is going to be important, and they do need more experienced players. But Manchester United have had experience, and the experience hasn't always been good in the past. The experience, say, of Ronaldo was a fantastic resume, but it didn't necessarily change the team in the way they wanted it to. Again, he's coming from Real Madrid, a particularly well-run club at the moment, where everything is kind of done for you, where you are treated particularly well. Could he be a bit of a fish out of water? Manchester United aren't the same level as Real Madrid right now. They aren't the same level of organisation as Real Madrid. So I'm not willing to bet that he's going to go straight from one club to another where things are particularly poorly run. And this isn't necessarily an indication of the signings to come either. If you look at the signings that Manchester United have been going for, it's been so scattergun, so all over the place, so strange that we don't know what Manchester United are going to go for next. Is it Marko Arnautovic? Is it Frenkie De Jong? Is it Asmir Begovic? Or is it a goalkeeper that's actually going to push this Manchester United side? By the way, this is also about Casemiro here. I mean, we're evaluating Manchester United, but on the other side of that, Ancelotti's quote from today where he said, I've spoken to Casemiro, he wants to try a new challenge. That must be very encouraging to Manchester United fans. If you are a high-end player who wants to leave Real Madrid when they're improving, and I get it, maybe there may be less time for him in the midfield with Tchouaméni and Camavinga and other players coming through, but you get my point. Like, this is great to see a player of his age saying, I want to go out and try something new. And he brings something to the Premier League. We've seen Darwin Núñez kind of struggle to acclimatise to some of the rough and tumble, but we know that people like Casemiro are into their rough and tumble. You saw him giving it to James Milner, you saw him giving it to other players out there. That's exactly what you want to see if you're a Manchester United fan. Someone who's up for a challenge, someone who gets into a tackle and doesn't shy away. Manchester United have lacked that for a while. Remember, this player on his own brings so much to this team, but it's whether when he gets to Manchester United, those qualities still exist in the same way, and whether his confidence is going to be the same as at a huge club like Real Madrid. Manchester United don't have that air right now. But maybe they get it with someone like Casemiro. Even then, Manchester United weren't even able to really progress out of their first phase of play, which is get the ball from De Gea to one of the two centre-backs or one of the two full-backs. They were pressed so much in the first two games, and sure, Eriksen is a great player, but he didn't receive the ball comfortably in the previous game. What is there to say that Casemiro will do that if pressed? I think he'll bring an element of competency, and that is fantastic in the Premier League. I think he'll bring an element of enforcer. I want to see that in a Manchester United side now. We haven't seen that in a while. And maybe it's just saying to Manchester United fans, this is a stopgap. But a long-term contract maybe allows them to sell him on somewhere else. Even then, I'm still thinking, yeah, does this fit the Erik Ten Hag profile? And is Erik Ten Hag even happy with this signing in the first place? I guess he will have been told when he first came in, hey, we want to sign this kind of player. But do you think he's actually looking to sign this kind of player? Again, I'm not putting down Casemiro as a player. It's just that normally when a top-end side signs someone, you go, here's where he slots in. We know he's probably going to play that deep-lying role, right? But will it be alongside someone else? Will it be alongside an Eriksen? Will it be alongside a Fred? This probably, by the way, means the end for someone like McTominay, but you probably want to keep McTominay around as a squad player. But does McTominay want to stick around as a squad player at Manchester United? Or does he go down the Dean Henderson route of being not as happy with what his previous position was. It's not great to be a non-starter for Manchester United right now. If you're of any reasonable quality, you'd imagine you want to start. And also, does this mean an element of pragmatism now from Erik ten Hag? Him saying, if we can't get the players we want immediately, I'll do with X, I'll do with Y, I'll do with this. I'd be interested to see whether this is an Erik ten Hag signing and he turns him into an Erik ten Hag player, or this is a Manchester United signing and we see more pragmatism from Erik ten Hag. Bear in mind, here's how the equation goes. Become more pragmatic and possibly win games, or think about the long term, and maybe in the long term you'll win once the players understand your philosophy, but if you don't show the pragmatism and win enough games and your philosophy doesn't kick in soon enough, neither of those things are any longer on the table because you don't have that job anymore. There is pressure from the Manchester United board at the top, but interestingly, Erik ten Hag has a lot of cards still to play. He hasn't really been very vocal in the media about whether he's happy or not at the club. Of course, if he was to leave, he could give numerous interviews, and in many ways he has this Erik ten Hag-ism that he can now hold over the board. I came in, you asked for me, use me. That's a very compelling case, especially as Manchester United fans got very excited about that. But so far, whilst we have seen the seeds of this, and there are plenty of people saying, hey, Manchester United will lose badly this season because they will try new Erik ten Hag things, and sometimes the players won't be confident enough. Sometimes they won't have the way of executing it. Sometimes they won't have the know-how to be able to do it, and therefore we will get beaten. We will fall into some traps until we are more confident with it. This is going to take time. Erik ten Hag is buying himself time and has already bought himself time. But in many ways, Manchester United had that in the bank for him because they don't have an alternative option. This again is an indication of Manchester United being quite scattergun and not having a long-term plan. But Casemiro is a great way and a great name to paper over some of those cracks. It'll be interesting to see how they do. And I get it. Maybe this is a great signing for Manchester United in the short term. But I think in the long term, things will have to change at United. I'll be interested to see if that happens. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about the signing, where he fits in, how you see him fitting in. Of course, he's not going to start the game against Liverpool, seemingly, mainly because I don't think he'd get enough training sessions in before then, and I don't know if they're going to be able to register him in time. But let's see. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll be interested to know what you guys think, and I'll chat to you guys later.